And welcome back to the Trevor Report. My name is Trevor, obviously, but you probably got that. But anyway, let's get right into it. So, Jordan Peterson, earlier in September, or I guess mid-September and late September, dropped his conservative manifesto. This is where we get into some philosophy, okay? But conservatism and manifesto do not mix together. And to be honest, a lot of his stuff, okay, because Jordan Peterson is a professor, okay, a lot of this stuff is Enlightenment values. Now, don't get me wrong, you could be like Edmund Burke, okay? Edmund Burke is a conservative philosopher, okay? But he was also a Whig. Like, there is definitely some parallels here, but you can see the sort of Enlightenment influence when he says when he brings out the values of his conservative manifesto. Okay, so he does his preface, which is fine. He does his introduction, which is also fine, but then we see this: humility, liberty, autonomy, truth, agency, identity, merit, responsibility, tradition, community, stewardship, justice. Now here's the thing: humility, tradition, merit, responsibility. These can all be lumped together into the same thing. Okay, liberty, autonomy, and agency, and arguably justice as well, can all be lumped into the same thing, okay? And we could just go by the Google stuff, the sort of YouTube bar right here, okay? And this is probably because of Jordan Peterson's audience, which is comprised of Republicans or classical liberals, okay? You have liberty being his most replayed part of his video. Now, don't get me wrong, this liberty section is also his most sensational, where he says a politician's name out loud, Justin Trudeau in this case, and so forth. But it just becomes one of those things where conservatism is not a top-down ordered structure. It is intuitive. Okay, it is a continuum of time, if we were to go for like a Burkean tradition of conservatism. And then you have his part 2, okay? Not gonna play the audio, but where's his most replayed? Okay, maturity, sacrifice, resistance, and temptation, and the first quarter, like the end quarter of his maturity, sacrifice, and resistance to temptation, and then his marriage thing. So basically, Jordan Peterson's audience being comprised of men who need help. He is a professional clinical psychologist who's done some psychiatric work, has his works cited all over the place. Don't get me wrong, huge respect for Jordan Peterson. I've seen some of his videos throughout the years myself, but it just becomes one of those things where like it's a problem. You cannot have a conservative manifesto. A conservative is all about if you wanted a definition of conservative, okay, my intuition would incline that conservatism is a philosophy that is concerned with protecting and forging that which is wholesome. A rigid structure like a manifesto doesn't work. It just doesn't make sense. And the guys over at the Lotus Eaters Carl Benjamin from the Lotus Eaters did a fantastic job articulating all of this. He did a fantastic job, and I'd imagine he's going to be going through it more, like doubtless, probably in some of the premium stuff. Like the guys at the Lotus Eaters are great, okay, really are. But the thing is, we have conservative philosophers that we can draw on. Okay, there are modern ones who are like actual monarchists. Okay, like these are proper conservatives, like Curtis Yavin, or by his pen name, Mencius Mollberg or whatever. Okay, there's also, as I mentioned before, Edmund Burke. Okay, and there's also Michael Oakeshott. I think Michael Oakeshott's Like the Sanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy is often described as a conservative thinker, but this description notices only one aspect of his thought and invites misunderstanding because of its ambiguities. Basically, Michael Oakeshott has a lot to say about the modern world, particularly his rationalism in politics, like that essay, right? He has a lot to say about the modern world. These are true and correct statements. And so there's already, you have the cathedral saying, not so much. All right. But, and here's the promise here. Okay. And the promise is that if they're doing this to Michael Oakeshott already so early, Michael Oakeshott has a lot to say. Read his Rationalism in Politics essay. For one, it's the most British thing I've ever read in my life. So it's passive aggressive in a very formal and polite way. It's a really good read. But anyway, got to move on to the next segment because unfortunately, there was more news than something that happened involving philosophy. I wish I could talk about this. I could talk about this more, but
Acropolis News. News from the Acropolis.